Hello, everybody. Welcome, Daryl. Welcome. Welcome, Daryl. Hi, I'm Nancy McCarthy, Cannon Beach City Councilor, and I'm here with Lisa Kerr, our fellow Cannon Beach City Councilor. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, everybody.
And we've got quite a full audience here today.
And
We've
a
got
lot
people
on
walking
Zoom
in,
as
and we've got a few people here. It's great for August. It's amazing. All right. The way this works is I'll go around to the audience and ask everyone what they would like to talk about. And then we will come back and talk about what it is you wanted to talk about. So, and then today we also have our code enforcement officer, in case you have any questions about codes that aren't being kept up in the city. And we have Rick Hudson, our emergency management coordinator, and Mark Reckman, our fire district chief. And I asked them to come especially because of the fire danger that we face here. And because of the Lahaina fire, I thought, we need to talk a little bit about Cannon Beach because Cannon Beach is so much similar to Lahaina in the way that it's spread out and the woods and everything behind it. So I wanted them to talk about the fire danger and fire prevention as well. I think we have some other topics to talk about. I think ELF is on the list, and whatever else you want to talk about. So I'm going to start in the audience. We have quite a few people in the audience today. And let's start over to the left here. And if you can tell me your name and what you'd like to talk about. Yes.
Terry Ramey. I am on the advisory council for the NICUS Center project, and I am just happy to speak to the history that I have been involved in thus far for the last year.
Great.
And happy to be a support.
It's been a great committee too. You've done a great job.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
And I don't know your name. Would you like?
Mark and Karen Davis,
Okay.
and we have been coming here. I now live here full time, and so we're just here to learn. Understand.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Diane and Rex, what would you like to talk about today?
Diane Amos and I'm here to observe.
Okay, that's always scary when Diane and Rex are here to observe.
Rex, I'm here to both compliment Jason and would-be son this here on the beach and other places, and to mention dead birds on the beach and puncture weed and no place for locals.
Okay.
One of those would be fine.
All right. All right, Les and Lynn, what would you like to talk about today?
I got a good explanation from Jason at our start meeting this week about why we can't ban fire pits, but I still want to ban fire pits.
Okay, why you can't build a fire
No,
pit?
you can.
Oh, you can.
They are legal in town and they have precautions, but they still scare me with all the woods around my house.
Les?
Just here to listen. Thank you.
And Les is also on the school advisory committee as well, so NICUS advisory committee as well. Deb, what would you like to talk about today?
Circle back to me because maybe my questions will come up.
Okay, I'm sure they will. All right, I don't know your name.
Larry Sparks.
Okay,
I'm here to talk about some flagrant abuses of power and harassment from Cannon Beach Police, from the new code enforcement officer.
okay. All right, well, this should be interesting. And your name again is Mark?
Larry Sparks.
Eric?
Larry
Sparks.
Larry, okay.
There you
Okay.
Jason here.
Jan, what would you like to talk about today?
So two things, I'd like to talk about the First Street Bridge grant that we received. And I have some questions around how that process will go possibly. And the other question I have is about our water. I'm trying to find out a lot of things about our water. But right now, I'm even trying to get a simple question answered. Are we using water from our creek? And if so, when did that begin?
Okay. And Daryl, what would you like to talk about?
Well, two things. I'd like to talk about the dark sky policy that we have in Cannon Beach and how it's not being enforced. And then I'd also like to talk about what's happening with the shuttle operation and where we stand with that debacle.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. And I don't know your name.
Hi, I'm Robert Kors. Bought a house here a couple of years ago and I thought I would come and listen and learn.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks. Welcome to the City Hall. Betty, what would you like to talk about today?
You're muted, Betty.
You're muted.
Sorry. Okay. I'd like to actually talk,
You're still muted.
about,
Well, I think somebody messed with our audio.
Uh-oh.
How about now?
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm just here to talk about Daniel and my positive experience with him.
Okay. All right, good. Matt, is it Matthew?
Yes, it is. Matthew Curtin. Resident in Cannon Beach. We have a second home. I want to speak about what Cannon Beach is doing to create a safer environment for us from the elk population, and what is the city's position on the Clatsop Plains Elk Collaborative that was issued and signed by several municipalities in the state back in June of 2021.
Wow, we've got a lot of people here today. I don't know if we're going to get everybody. Is it Tom?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Tom Curtin. I'm Matthew's brother, and I'm currently at his second home here in Cannon Beach, enjoying my stay and in the meantime fighting off the elk or hazing the elk that 13 of which came in our backyard last night. And I consider the elk population, while cute and majestic, it's this whole argument about the elk have been here 10,000 years longer than us humans, I feel was a red herring. It's not addressing the problem of this herd that the fish and wildlife say
They don't have time to process it.
will increase by 30% every year.
Okay, so we will talk about that in a few minutes. Thank you. And is it, I can't read the name. Richard, did you have something you'd like to talk about?
I'm Matthew Curtin's husband, so I'm going to let him speak to me. I'm just here to listen. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Betsy.
Well,
Hello, Betsy.
Hi, everybody. So just another hopeful reminder that Public Works or whoever does this would have time to finish painting the 10-minute spots across the street from the post office. You know, where the guy stands and plays the quote music. That's
Okay.
all. Thanks.
All right, and
There's no name on that one, just says iPhone.
okay.
Not sure who that is.
Is a phone? I don't know. Is there some, I don't know.
You're muted.
Muted. Okay,
Can you unmute?
yeah.
There we
I'm
go.
unmuted. There you go.
Okay.
Yes, my name is Mark Baum. I'm a property holder at 171 East Monroe.
Okay. Sounds like you haven't, you want to talk about the elk as well. Is that
Well, at
right?
this point, I want to listen about the elk. If I have something to add later, I'll make that request.
Okay. Jenny, what would you like to talk about?
Well, I just got in from my morning walk a little bit late. You can understand why somebody tags along. But I guess I'm interested in what's happening with our transportation plan, if there's been any projects off the plan started.
Okay. Lucinda, what would you like to talk about? And you're muted if you're talking. All right. Is it Bob or is it Nancy today, or both? What would you like to talk about?
You have both of us on separate
Okay.
devices. Hi, good morning. It's Bob.
Hi.
And I'm just listening in this morning. I'll let
Okay.
Nancy answer if she wants to say anything.
All right. Okay, well, welcome all. We have a huge agenda today.
Let's get on it.
Okay, I think the predominant at the moment is the elk. So let's talk about that. And we don't have a lot of time to talk about it here because we have other topics, but let's talk about it. Who would like to lead that discussion? Matthew, would you like to talk about that?
I'll certainly start in terms of some questions. I sent a document over to the city council, the mayor's office, county this morning. I hope you got a chance to read it. We've met with the state of Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. My husband and I do have concerns about the increase in the herd of the elk coming into Cannon Beach. The state has indicated to us, as my brother has indicated, that this is going to only exponentially increase the population of the elk over the next several years. And I just feel like it's certainly an issue and a danger as well, not only to property and people, that the city I would like to consider. I've gone before the city council about a year ago, was advised that no action was going to be taken. I think it's important that the city try to implement some kind of sustainable plan to address the number of elk that are coming into the city. And also, in reference to, I made reference to this Clatsop Plains Elk Collaborative. The state provided a copy of it to us. It's really telling that the city of Seaside signed it, the city of Gerhardt signed it, the city of Tillamook signed it, a few other municipalities and the state, but the city of Cannon Beach did not sign it. It's a 60+ page document that really incorporates a plan of action moving forward to address the elk population and how to make our cities and our environment safer.
Okay, I'm gonna, yeah.
Okay, well,
Come in.
I just went to a garden club meeting last week, and it was interesting that you bring that up about landscaping. And one of the topics they raised was what to do about elk. And there are things you can do in your yard to discourage elk coming in and eating all your landscaping. Like there's, number one, there's fencing, which is a deterrent to the elk. Number two, there are certain native plantings you can plant that elk don't enjoy eating as much. And they're having a lawn is obviously not, does not mix well with elk because they're going to poop on the lawn and they're going to lie in the grass, et cetera, et cetera. So my personal feeling is that I think there are ways to learn to coexist with our animal neighbors without going to the extent that the Clatsop Plains document extols, such as culling of herds is one of the things that I've noticed that they suggest. I don't agree with that at all, personally. I think that it enhances an environment to have, and it enhances human experience to live in harmony with animals. Now, I understand about the safety issue, and the safety issue is due to ignorance. People walk right up to the elk all the time. I saw it this weekend 3 times right on my street where people approach them with their children. So I do agree that something definitely has to be done to make it clearer to visitors who come here that the elk are not like, something you go up and try and pat.
I
that
guess
they're
the
not-
question I have is, what is the city doing? Because for the last 2+ years, the city has informed us that they are not willing to do anything.
Right.
And the
Well-
population is only increasing, and the safety risk is only increasing as well. And this
Well-
document is very detailed. And I guess the question I have is, why is the city, what is the city doing in, why the city didn't sign on to it? I think very specific.
I told you, one of the reasons is that we don't agree with everything that's in that document. That's number
So-
one. And wait a minute.
So
let me
have
finish,
you brought
please.
forward, have you brought that
Let me
forward
finish.
to the city and to the residents in terms of why, what parts of that they agree with and what parts of it they don't agree with?
Most of the people who live in Cannon Beach, all as permanent residents, actually have learned to coexist with the elk quite well by using, like, there's a woman who has the most beautiful rose garden you ever saw. Roses, elk love roses. She has a spray she puts on them, which is a natural spray, animal spray that repels the elks. All her roses are intact. They're beautiful. There are things you can do to help your yard. I do agree that I'd like to see Cannon Beach do more of an education program for visitors. I think that's really important, whether that's signage or whether that's putting out flyers in hotels about the elk. There are things that we can do to educate people who come here, not to interact with the elk, but to just
Well,
look
what
at
is,
them.
what is that plan?
We don't
what's
have one
that
yet.
timeline?
Okay, can I ask, Rick, do you have any suggestions?
Don't drag me into this. No, I do not have a suggestion for the elk population. This is not in my purview. I wish I did, but I have no plan for anything like that.
And Bruce, always like to come to you.
No, I think we had a discussion about to join that coalition when it first came out. And some of the points that Lisa is making, it was like, people can be responsible. If you want to keep them out of the yard, you can put up a fence. If you want to keep them away from the plants, there's things that you can do. But the fact is, they are not everything is going to be foolproof. And we do live, in I don't know if harmony, maybe some people would argue against harmony, but we do live with a lot of wild animals. That includes coyotes, bears, mountain lions. We've got this a gajillion acres of forest around us. And even if you were to go ahead and cull part of the herd or all of the herd, there's just a bunch of other ones right behind. So, they kind of sort out their numbers. And I think that it's possible that they can expand by 30%. I don't disagree with that too much, other than in the 6 years that I've been here, we would have like twice as many elk as what we've had, than when I got here. And I don't think that's the case. I think that it is relatively constant. But again, I don't know of anybody that goes out and actually does a survey of, how many elk we have.
I think recently talked about doing an education program for educating visitors, especially about the safety.
And we can bring that up at a council meeting about an education program. I think that's a good thing to put in our agenda. I think it makes sense. I'm certainly don't want to see anyone get hurt or to see an elk get hurt. So I think it makes total sense to give people that knowledge about how to interact. But one of the things that makes Cannon Beach so beautiful is the fact that we do have this incredible natural environment. And part of that is having animals as part of that, that's what comes with forests. We're not going to put up a fence around the forest. So I think if you're cultivating a lawn, a grass lawn, it's a huge nuisance. But my answer to that is maybe you don't have to have a big lawn in Cannon Beach. Maybe, you can find native plantings put out instead of grass. And that's just part of the cost of living here, is that you don't get to have a grassy lawn. That's just a suggestion. I'm not telling people what they should and shouldn't do. I'm just trying to suggest a way to keep the elk out of your yard, just as the garden club did when they handed out their flyers on what to do.
Well, I don't think this is going to be a subject that we're going to be able to, solve obviously today. And I know that it's probably not very satisfactory for those who are concerned about the elk.
But I do appreciate the bringing it up, because what it does is it does give us an impetus to talk about having a real education program for visitors.
I did read the.
I
the
definitely
information.
suggest that you work with the state. The gentleman that came out to our house last week was very informative, and I believe he has a very different of opinion in terms of what some of you have stated now in terms of statistics. And I think it would behoove all of us that the city, the county, and the state all be on the same page. And it's clear by what some of you are saying is that we're not on the same page. And he was very informative. He came from the Department of Fish and Wildlife. He came out to our house to talk about what we can do, what we shouldn't be doing. And he didn't indicate anything about a lawn. So I think it's important that you all collaborate and come up with some plan. If you're unwilling to take part or to sign on to this Clatsop plane, then come up with something that is agreed to by the state, the county, and the city.
Well, I don't think that'll probably happen. I think that we'll probably have our own plan, and it'll include education. And I don't think it's most likely, from what talking to people who live in the community, I very much doubt that at least the sitting government we have now is going to be willing to sign on to that program.
I did read the collaborative, and it's very heavy on education. And I think that's something that we can do.
Right. Absolutely.
Here. So it's something that we should probably discuss at a council meeting.
Do we have
I'm going to move on from this subject because we have.
Just a question. Does the city have a biologist on staff?
No.
So who would be the consulting, the area expert who would be consulting on this if the city's going to do it on their own?
We're not going to consult with a biologist, most likely.
So, but again, I've asked who is going to be the area expert in terms of advising and consulting the residents in terms of how to have an adequate plan in place.
Who would work with Fish and Wildlife?
Yeah.
We talk to Fish and Wildlife.
So you would be working with the state, the Fish and Wildlife.
We work with them in other capacities.
Well, you just indicated that you would be doing it on your own.
Well, we wouldn't be signing on to the plan that you're talking about, at least not at this time. Most likely. I don't know. Maybe I'm just one council member.
Okay, I'm going to stop this discussion because we have a lot of other topics to move on to. I do want to ask Rick and Mark, if you could just give us a very brief discussion about the potential fire danger here in Cannon Beach and what we can do about it.
Yeah, I actually made some printouts here. This is something that's in my lane of purview. I'm going to ask Rusty to bring up some information on the website here so you guys can see it online. Please pass that to your left. Thank you.
You're gonna keep them.
This one. Thank you. My screen, I only have 10. I'll take a check. You guys, it's great to have a packed out here today.
Oh, I know that.
Okay. And Deb, if you don't mind, I don't have an extra one here, but I'm gonna use this here to go back on.
Oh, yeah.
So we coordinate very well with the state and county officials when it comes down to how we respond to any kind of mitigation efforts when it comes to any kind of evacuation levels. But before we talk about evacuation levels, which is what you have in your hand here, let's talk about risk factors. In 2019, when I first came here, I was asked to give by the city manager to the Parks Committee an assessment of our risk factors here in Cannon Beach. And at that time, we were on the third year of a 4-year drought, and the risk factors were high. A lot of people in the community didn't really accept the fact that those risk factors are real, and that they just kind of dismissed that concept as something we need to really focus on. Since that conversation, we had the 2020 wildfires in the state of Oregon that were the legendary wildfires that we all know about. And I think people started to wake up and honestly started to pay attention to what was happening, not only in their small regions, but statewide that affects them very much. We are at risk in our community because we are a town that's inside of a forested area. As climate change and other things change to increase our heat indexes, we become more at risk in this community. And we have to pay attention to the fact that even in 2020, they had fires as close to us down in Lincoln City, which evacuated areas, lost homes, and also caused life loss. And it's not something that we can turn our back on. Since then, we put a lot of efforts into the city, and I think it's changed people's attitudes about what's happening in this region. Are we in lower risk than other regions? Yes, but are we at high risk? Yeah, because we live in a forest. Just a couple weeks ago, before the Lahaina incident, we had a red flag warning in this community. The key to that is when you look at these 3 levels of evacuation, you have level 1, level 2, and level 3. When you have a red flag warning, we're already at level 2. We're yellow. The red flag warning tells you this is an announcement to say that we're in a dangerous environment and that things can happen fast. Now, we need people to always be at a level 2 or a level 1 in their homes. They need to be prepared and be in touch with us. So we put out a lot of information about how to get this and how we send this information out so you're clued in. So when you hear something like a red flag warning, and then we choose to close down the ECFR, there's a reason for that. That means all of the recipe of having a major natural disaster are present at the time. Since I've been here since 2019, that's happened 7 times. When I talk to people that lived here a lot longer than me, they said they've never seen that. I've seen it 7 times since I've been here. All that does mean is that we need to have a preparedness level in this community that keeps us safer. How many firefighters are on duty right now, Chief?
2.
2. How many law enforcement officers are on duty right now?
1.
1. If we have to evacuate this community, we have 1 police officer who handles the evacuation. We have 2 firefighters who are handling the threat of fire. We have to be in touch with what happens as a community. And we've done a great job in our community of getting everybody closer on this. We've been having more community outreach events going neighborhood by neighborhood with our CERT team and talking about these risk factors. And the risk factors are things that we just need to appreciate. In Lahaina, when that happened, that fire started right around midnight in the upper part of Maui. It wasn't a big threat to the lower inland, but they were already on a red flag warning. When that fire hit right around midnight, it was due to electrical issues in the community that caused a power failure, probably by the system, the electrical system. What happened later on that morning is when Lahaina started having sustained winds, they also had fires that were started by electrical utilities. And at that time, they were already under a red flag warning. They were already at this level of 2. So the key for everybody to realize is you have to have a heightened sense of urgency and be prepared at home. And that's your responsibility. And that's something that with our community outreach events, we do the best we can to try to educate people. Be ready, because you're not going to get a lot of notice except for what's happening already. We send out a lot of National Weather Service announcements when they're warnings, and we don't send out little ones. We send them out when they're real. And a lot of people respond to that, and a lot of people sign up for that. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. But the key for everybody here is when that fire was already taking place in Lahaina, they had 70 and 80 mile an hour winds, and the power grid was still on. Now, I come from a fire service background in California for many, many years, where I was a trained firefighter paramedic. And for many, many years, they had a hard time with understanding why this was happening and how to avoid it. And then they started doing power shutoffs about 8 years ago in California. Just this last June, and a power shutoff means they will shut off the entire grid to a community that is high risk. Now, the challenge with shutting off power to a community due to risk is many factors. Who needs that power to survive? Like people with home oxygen and power. Are they prepared to be without power? All these things that add into just shutting off the power willingly is challenging to a community. And for them to turn the power back on, they have to inspect every line. So it's not something that's ever done easily or half-heartedly. They have to visually inspect all the power lines before they turn it back on. So you're talking about a commitment. Well, in California, they started doing that to save communities due to the risk. In Oregon this last June, the state of Oregon agreed Pacific Power and PG&E will also do power shutoffs when necessary. So it's important that when you hear that this might happen, we're already at a high level of risk for them to shut down the power. One thing that was interesting that happened to us the past 18 months is Pacific Power came through here to work on their 70-year-old system. And we encouraged it. They got a lot of rebuff from this community and other communities about how they took out some power lines and how they took out trees and foliage around them. And you know what? You have to realize that's our power coming in here. We want to make it as safe as possible. So it's very, very important that we appreciate what they're doing because they only do it about once every 20 years. And they just recently did that to this area. We still have an old aging system that needs to be maintained. And we need to respect the fact that it's in the middle of a forest. And we live at the end of that line. And there's no other power for us except for what's coming in. So when we look at the dynamics of the environment changing, we live in a forest in this beautiful community. We don't have a lot of fire suppression. We're working on that and we're getting much better and much stronger at it. But we have to fight to get our access roads in these areas. We have to fight to make these as safe utilities. And we have to fight the community to pay attention to, hey, these risk factors are real. Look what happened in Lahaina. Do you realize Lahaina has almost as much water a year as we do on their area, and they're still at high risk. They were advised that they were at high risk. One thing that's very in common with us in Lahaina is how many visitors were in Lahaina? How many visitors are here? How many people come to visit us that don't know how the system works? They don't know how to get out safely. They're not plugged into the notification system very clearly, very quickly. How much is our local neighbors and our locals important to tell visitors when they're coming in how to function during an emergency? They're critical. That's why we put so much effort into the community outreach here. And we really need to preach a safe city. So we can't afford to thumb our nose at things that might be a risk. Sea rise, drought, foliages that are not safe in an environment for us. We cannot afford to do that in this environment because the risk factors are high. So it's our job to basically put this stuff out. And what we have up there on the website right now, and what I've handed you guys, are the evacuation levels. And we've done a lot of work over the past 3 years to get this information, not only in the city, but out to the community. So you can react quickly and you can save others by knowing how to react. And when we have red flag warnings, we're already at a level 2. We don't always have the luxury of law enforcement to have a bullhorn and knock on our door and say, leave your house. That's not always in our luxury. We don't have that. How do we evacuate this whole city? I'll be honest with you. It's going to be a challenge, right, Chief? It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge.
Well, to add on to that, I've, over this last week, coming back from vacation and seeing emails and conversations, there's a huge difference between fire evacuation and tsunami evacuation. Tsunami evacuation, we know where the water's coming from. It's coming from one direction. We have an easy out. Fire, we can't have pre-planned evacuation routes because we don't know where that fire is. We don't know what the wind is doing. What's humidity doing? There's so many factors and variables in fire. It's impossible to make fire evacuation routes. So completely different animals between tsunami and fire.
Right. And it's just important that we accept the fact that this can be a risky environment. Weather does change a huge effect on our lives here. And we want to respect that. We want to respect the fact that these natural events happen. We can deal with them very well as long as we kind of prepare ourselves at home and in our persons for this reality. And please get in touch with what we're doing to keep people safe. At the bottom of this sheet, we have several things that are important to sign up on. And on our city website, we have a community notification list and the ability to sign up for what we call Nixle. Nixle is a form of communication that we send out alerts directly to your phone and your email. How many people here, show of hands real quick and online, have Nixle sign up? Very good. Very good. Our goal is to get that to where we improve that and that we have control over city police, fire, and emergency management. We send out alerts when necessary. CLATSIP alerts is another one of those same formats, and that's for the county to use, okay? And then also there's the National Weather Service and other stuff to be clued into. And you know what? All you have to do is go to our emergency management website and it's all on there for you. But let's talk real quick before I turn this over to the chief or to questions.
We actually have to keep going. We have to cut it off. pretty
Okay, I will do that. Do me a favor, realize that this is consistent with the state. We talk about consistencies. Our level 1, 2, and 3 is what the state, city, and counties use. Please use this as a guide for you in your home to be ready and be ready to evacuate within 2 hours with the things you need for about 2 weeks worth of use. All that stuff's online for us. Okay. And I want to thank you guys and the counselors for inviting us to this venue because we don't always get it. We were lucky Saturday to go to a community member's house on the north end and we talked a little bit about it. So I want to thank the community for opening their doors to us. Very appreciative.
Mark, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think Rick is the biggest, I've talked to a few people about this in the last few weeks. We live in an urban interface. We call it an urban interface. Like Rick said, we're in the forest. But I think this community is a little different than, say, Bend. Bend is a much higher risk. And so there's certain things we're going to pre-plan over there. And there's education goes out, such as keeping things away from the houses and stuff. It's a little different here. But I think one of the biggest things we can do is work at that understory. Getting brush, getting blackberry bushes out from under the trees. That's where the fire is going to come up. Keeping trees limbed up off the ground. Those are things we can do proactively.
And keeping limbs away from houses themselves.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Okay. If you want to learn more about the fire that we did have in the Ecola Forest Reserve, look at our website, or the YouTube on the September 8th meeting. There was a description, Mark, and his division chief, Jason, described what happened at that fire and how difficult it was to get to the fire and why the fire didn't spread. And I'll just let you tease on that, but it was scary. And we need to talk about roads in there to get access to that forested, deep forested area back there. So September 8th meeting, toward the end of the meeting is when they start.
August 8th.
I mean, August 8th, September already. Yeah, August 8th meeting. Sorry about that. Okay.
Nancy, you have
Betty? Did you?
You're muted, Betty.
You're muted. There you go.
Yes, I just wanted to mention in Lahaina, they did not have a signal for fire. They only had for tsunami. And so I wondered if we could have our cows do different warnings for different emergencies so that we would be able to make the whole community aware at the same time.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Right now, one of the biggest things that we're doing since the system is being rebuilt is we're trying to get a PA system out there so we can give audible descriptions out to the community that are not just tsunami related. And that's part of our rebuild process with the cow system is that we have the ability to give out an audible, which will tell you what's going on in different scenarios. And that's one of the benefits for us, deciding to rebuild that system and improve it for the future.
Okay, great. All right, I'm going to move on to other topics. Let's see. We have a question about the Code of Enforcement Officer. Larry, would you like to talk a little bit about this and keep it short?
Well, it's pretty hard to keep it short. I'll just, first of all, I live on 472 North Hemlock Street, right into Les Shirley's Park. And for the last 10 years, we've had garage sales and we've had police come there showing the permits. Didn't have any problems with where we put the signs. Not in our driveway, one across the street, one by the hotel, one the house next to the Seahorse Ranch. Never a problem. Fast forward to Friday. Here come Mr. Contour, scoops them up, slams them on my driveway, said I'm not in compliance. That's bullshit. We were in compliance. We've been in compliance for the last at least 10 years. And he showed not only arrogance, abuse of power and harassment. He's damn lucky he's an officer. He's
Okay.
been real.
Then I'm gonna ask, Daniel, can you talk about what happened?
Yeah, so the signs were in the public right of way,
No, they're not. No, they were not in public records. Here's the definition of a right of way for RIS 801.440.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right here. I think this is something you need to bring up with Jason, the police chief. I don't think we need to do this in a public arena.
Well, anyway,
So I think I'm going to ask you to talk to the chief about this.
this is,
And Daniel can
okay,
talk about
is
it.
that, just a short, I think I'm not being, unduly negative or being extreme. I won't mention my military career, but I've run fishing boats with crews of 5. I've been a corporate manager with the Boeing company for
Okay.
30 years.
Dan, I'm going.
I know how to hire and fire employees, and I can tell you, Mr. Contour should not be a police officer.
Okay, you need to take this up with Jason then. Thank you.
Mr. Sparks, after this meeting, if you give me your phone number, I'll get it to Jason, our police chief.
I think I know Jason.
Oh, he knows.
All right.
Okay, all right. Betty, would you like to talk?
Yes, I actually was, the one thing I wanted to talk about today was last week I had a meeting with Daniel and about different issues that are going on in town. And he was just, I left that meeting feeling like we're so lucky to have you, Daniel, in our community. And I thank you so much for what you're doing. I noticed on Saturday when we were in the park dealing with the underbrush of the Sitka forest, Daniel drove by and he was on duty. And so I'm just happy we have a code enforcement officer, and I wanted to thank him for his service.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm also very, very pleased with having a good code enforcement officer.
Well, he's not a good employee. We don't need a
All right.
$100,000 code officer pulling up broad citizens.
Sir, that's your opinion.
So,
I'm right.
yes, let's,
No.
okay, we are going to, you're going to take this up with Jason. Bruce is going to get your phone number. There'll be communication between you and Bruce and Jason, and you can deal with it with them. Rex and Diane, you wanted to talk about dead birds and stickers.
I was just gonna compliment the police, and I'm glad we have a enforcement officer, and Mr. Sparks seems to be, kind of over the top here, but maybe he's upset because they might have removed the camera, so he might have had a tree by his house, or they don't let him park in the West Shirley Park anymore the way they used to.
That's irrelevant, have no material in this case, sir.
So you've had your chance.
And,
Rex, did you want to talk about?
He doesn't know what he's talking about.
the enforcement officer is with us because we certainly need it, especially when the dark sky ordinances have to be dealt with.
Okay.
And the beach has been so clean this year. I mean, thank the police for coming out and doing what we used to have to do, is turn in the tents and pick up all the garbage. And the beach has been very clean this year, and we haven't had to turn any tents in except a couple times. And also Public Works for coming out and digging up the puncture weed that was in the public right of way. Kids were stepping in that and getting hurt. We appreciated that. HA came out and dug all that up.
Yeah.
So, other than that, I think the city's doing pretty well.
Okay.
And the elk, we really appreciate it when they come and trim our lilac.
Or my geraniums.
With Diane, that we should have rocks and moss. You kind of learn to go with the flow here. So.
Yeah. Just like bunnies, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, but I don't have a money report for you.
Oh, well, that's good because you've eaten them all.
Lisa took care of that by embroidering bunnies on her shirt. Anyway.
All right. Good. We talked a little bit about fire, and Lynn wanted to know why fire pits are still allowed. You said you got your answer, but
Jason gave us the answer about how they're designed to make sure the embers don't get too far. But is there anything really safe about having a fire in town? And it's always, oh, go talk to them if you have a problem. You know how talking to neighbors goes, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And the thing with fire pits, as long as as long as they're safe, and I've gone out many times, I've had many complaints and gone out and looked at them. I have yet to go out and look at one that said, yeah, this is unsafe. I honestly have not had a single one. This last few weeks, there was quite an issue, not in Cannon Beach, but in the rest of the county about open burning and burn barrels. And so that's where, as county fire defense, we made the decision to ban all open debris burning and burn barrels. Because Napa, Gearhart, Warrenton had issues, multiple issues with escape fires from those. There was kind of a push at one point before that happened to completely ban all open fire, all campfires and beach fires. I don't have the personnel to enforce that. Jason, police does not have personnel to enforce that. There is times we go to that extreme, and we have, since I've been here in the last 3 years, we have, but that's about 3 times. And it is a huge undertaking of time.
So it might be a good idea. It's just not doable.
Absolutely.
It is
doable when we have to, when it gets to that extreme that we have to. During 2020, during that windstorm, we did. There was a couple other times that we have. The thing with east winds in our favor is it's really going to blow everything towards the ocean. Now, that doesn't help us when they're up on 8th Street, Oak Street, that area. You still got it for us. What scares me more is when we have the southwest winds, because those are typically pretty dry as well. And so that actually is what scares me more. And that's where we have more of a fire problem. The more of the issue I have with fires is the dune grass. The estuary down here behind the school, we deal with multiple times a week. I don't care how many times Public Works has gone out there, Code Enforcement has gone out there with us, and we have just completely dismantled the burn pits out there and drug all the logs out of there, and people go and drag them back up there. We can't end that, but we're constantly out there putting them out because those are what scare me.
Okay.
not scared.
Can I say something on that subject?
Real quick.
So we live above the campground.
Yep.
And we put the dogs out the other night and they came back smelling like had almost been burned. They were so smelly. But anyway, we're worried about the embers that are flying up from the campfires into that forest.
So I've been down there with that rights for camping and walked through that campground with them because of that issue. They have done a really, really good job of limiting everything up away from those. I mean, they're 10 feet above those. Because I have the same concern going through there, but they have done a really good job of keeping those fire pits clear and limiting up. We had an issue up there a couple weeks ago with where they were dumping the embers. They ended up dumping them up in their spot a little too soon. Ended up a little fire up there. They recognized their mistake, obviously, as we were up there putting it out. And but that was completely unrelated to their actual campfires. That was where they were dumping the ashes.
I think I want to know that. Too close to home, literally. Okay, Daryl, you wanted to talk about dark sky and shuttle. The dark sky ordinance will be discussed by the Planning Commission next Thursday night, by the way. So if anybody's interested in the dark sky ordinance and maybe participating in that discussion, that will be next Thursday night. But what would you like to say about it?
You know, a few years ago, we were talking about dark skies and having shields so that all the lights point downwards. So I took a drive through the city around midnight, and the majority of the people that don't recognize the dark skies are motel and hotel owners. They have lights that are pointed up at their signs rather than from the signs down. So I'm thinking, you know, in order for the general public to know about this, particularly the residents, that we should send out a notice to these people saying we want to enforce the dark sky policy that we have, and make sure that these hotel owners and motel owners and short-term people are aware of that, because that's where most of the light is pointed upwards.
Is there something that can be done about that, do you know?
As we get into the enforcement of the dark sky,
Mhm.
if we do have standards that say that it has to, the lights have shining down, then, you know, we would do code enforcement.
Can we talk to the hotel owners and motel owners, remind them that they do have that, we do have the ordinance and they do need to follow the standards?
I would want to make sure that that particular standard is in there.
Is that something you can work with the code enforcement?
Sure.
Is that something you can?
That'd
Okay,
be great.
so maybe if you can, and maybe somehow letting them know that we do have the dark sky ordinance discussion coming up on Thursday night too, might help.
Our ordinance actually is much better than I realized. Part of the problem was I didn't understand it, you know,
Yeah.
all the lumen thing and everything,
Yeah.
but I think it, you know, glad the planning commission is going to address it.
Yeah, I remember when it was first passed several years ago. I remember the council, I wasn't on the council at the time, but the council at that time didn't want to go really, letter for letter with the dark sky ordinance committee or council or whatever it is, the
Right.
national guidelines. So they edged back from that. And I'm not sure just how the planning commission is going to deal with it.
Yeah, it's such a great idea.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, to be able to see the stars.
Yeah. Well, if you have notes about which hotels might have that problem, maybe you can talk to Daniel about it.
Okay.
Would that be all right?
I'll get you a card.
Now, there's a long list.
Yeah. Yeah. If you could do that, that would be great.
And, you know, another thing to consider on that is, you know, there are some cities that have a policy that the lights are turned off at midnight. So, you know, we could go that.
There you go.
Completely dark at midnight, except for streetlights, I guess, because you have to have them on the S curves.
Well, but the streetlights, you know, they're capped down, so that's but you know, the hotels that I'm talking about, hotels, they're pointed directly.
Right.
Carol, you also wanted to talk about the shuttle. Bruce, can you kind of give an update on the whole bus and shuttle situation?
We're working with Sunset Empire, and the city had some funds to run a shuttle during the summer. And they didn't have the drivers, they didn't have the buses. So we still had that funding. So we went to the Sunset Empire Transit meeting and said, we would like to work with you to get at least more runs to help the employees to rely on the bus. And they are working on developing some routes with the understanding that we would be assisting in paying for those, especially in their current situation. And I'll be going to the transit meeting this Thursday morning, and hopefully we'll have come up with a solution by that time. What we're trying to do, right now, there's a route that goes pretty much the length of the county from it's like a 7 a.m, and then the next time it happens is 6 p.m. We're trying to get 3 more in the middle.
Yes. Well, I've noticed that one of the things that didn't make any sense to me at Brailer and Hemlock, where I am, is the bus stop. And for the last few years, when it was running, the bus will turn off onto 101 at Tolovana and then come in from the south side. Well, I have people that are standing and sitting at Brailer waiting to see a bus. And so I don't know why they didn't do it the way they used to, and that is go to the end Hemlock at the south end, turn around and come back. That way they know that there's a bus coming. Because I've had several people there that I said, well, there's a schedule there, but it's not being followed. And so I just wanted to know with the financial problems that they had, if that is, if that's being addressed, and if the city has money to increase those routes.
Yes, and that's one of the negotiation points we had, and they understand we want the traffic to be on Hemlock, not on 101.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
The
real,
pickups.
but they follow the highway all the way down apparently. And so you have people working on, who have working stores on Hemlock, and they can get there one way, but they can't get home the other way because of the highway situation. But it's a real problem.
Yeah.
They're also looking to add some stops like at Fred Meyer's and some other things to make the routes more useful for people to be able to actually use it to go shopping, or to pick up groups of people at Fred Meyer's at a particular time. They all know that they'll get a ride out to come down to work.
Yeah, it's a real problem.
Definitely no 101.
So we are in discussions, but they just don't have any money, and we have money, but we don't have enough.
There's another point on that, Nancy, is that DOT is withholding money from Sunset Empire that was supposed to have been paid in June and July. And so they're trying to sort that out, but it's actually exacerbating the financial situation.
Okay, let's see. I think Ginny wanted to know about the status of the transportation plan.
The transportation plan, there were no projects. It said, okay, we're going to do this project first in the transportation plan. It was kind of a framework that if you're having, difficulty at a particular location and you want to look at a three-way stop, or you want to do something along those lines, it's kind of a roadmap to get through something like that. There were no capital projects included in it, and they could be added at any time. And then we've kind of got a head start. Another huge advantage by having the transportation plan, though, is that in the past, we were not eligible for grants. They always want to know, do you have a transportation plan before we give you any grant money? Now we have that. So we're in a better situation if we do try to do anything, that we will be able to get grant funding to assist us.
So I guess the answer is we don't have any transportation projects on schedule right at the moment.
Right, and it would take council to decide, yes, we want to go ahead and do this project. Transportation plan helps us to do that.
Okay. Ginny, does that answer your question?
It does. I'd have to say I'd advocate for getting the trail started from, across the S-curves, the hill or whatever, especially with the terminus at the school, with the school being such a big deal right now. It would be awesome to have that trail as kind of part of that bigger project, terminating at the school or going on to the north end. So, and here's Kiska, my new family member.
Hello, Kiska.
I think that is a great. I've been thinking about that a lot, especially since I walk on the S curves quite a bit, and thinking how great it would be to have an alternative route to walk downtown. And so we really,
I know that's part of the,
yeah,
that's part of the plan. Yeah. Yeah. Deb.
I thought about my question now.
Okay, I have one other before you though. We're on our last one, and Jan, on the First Street Bridge in the water.
The water, we started in July. That's usually when we start taking water out of the creek. And we will do that until we start getting the rains.
Do you know the date in July?
I don't, but I can get it for you, Jan. And Jan, I owe you a bunch of information on the water system.
Yeah, and usually we don't take water, we take water earlier than July in case we might need it. But normally every year we do not actually use it from the creek. And this year is, if we are in fact using it, is different. And that is a concern because that water then cannot be returned to the creek. And we need that water for all of us, as well as if we ever had a fire, We need it for so many things. And so I'm just advocating more water conservation, that we need to have public education, and we need to have a program whereby we are proactive, because our water is so precious and we're not going to probably be having as much of it as we have had in decades past because of climate change. So let's just please, we have to think about how many people come here every year, every summer, when our water situation is low, the creeks are low flow. And so I'm very concerned that we be more proactive than what we're doing right now.
Understood.
Deb, you are the last to ask a question. Make it short and we're gonna.
I wanted to talk about the school when Dick's here and a few of the committee members. So there's a lot of talk going around town about $35,000 and we're gonna bankrupt the town. And I just wanted to talk about the school. Is there a way to lay that out simplistically to reassure people?
What is this about?
The cost of the school?
What was the $35,000?
Well, it's being circulated in coffee shops and all sorts
I
of.
wish it was $35,000.
Anyway, and I don't know what it is either, but I think it's the school, the new fire department and the city hall added together, right? But it's more than that.
35,000?
Maybe.
I think it's million.
Police department.
Huh?
I think it's million,
Yeah,
35 million.
that's police department, not fire.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
For that up.
You don't want to be part of this?
Nope,
Anyways,
no problems.
so in simplistic terms, can you reassure people, I mean, reassure them, because we want the school to go forward and we don't want people to be in a state of freaking out about it.
12 million of the 35 million is for the school.
Right.
And we went through a public process and decided what was going to be done at the school. And I want to talk a little bit about, construction projects. We had an addition to the restrooms, like, a couple of toilets, $500,000. And we've got just a cover for a generator at two of our lift stations, and they were about $500,000. So the cost of us being able to do a project, and had we started these projects, 5-10 years ago, they would have been much less expensive. And I'm seeing letters going around where people are saying that, well, this city paid this much for their police station. Well, our police station and police and city hall are going to be about 25 million, but had we built them 5 years ago, they would have been 16 million. So what's happening is the more we delay, we're not changing, the need is not getting less. As a matter of fact, this building, this wall is being held up by the roof, by the way, not the other way around. So we've got those kind of situations here. And anybody that wants to do a tour of the police station, happy to do it. Because some of the conditions that those people have to work under. So we've waited, and now the costs have gone up that much. It's like the real estate costs in Buchanan Beach. And so that's what it is. And if we say, okay, well, we won't do them now, we'll wait till they get cheaper. That's not going to happen. I'm sorry, it could happen. I have never seen it.
I think that one of the other big miscommunication things is I've seen a lot of letters from people saying, how can you be building the school when we have a housing issue? in the
Right.
state? It's a different pool of money. We can't use TLT money for housing.
And TLT is transit lodging taxes.
Right. Yeah, we can't, there's pools of money that we are legislated to use for particular purposes. The school is being paid for out of a completely different pool of money than, for example, housing. We would love to put up wonderful workforce housing or small village housing, all kinds of things, but we can't use that same money. So it's not either you fund housing or you fund the school. They're two separate things. I think that's the biggest communication problem is that people are not seeing that
Sure.
those are two and don't understand the differentiation between the pools of money.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's basically what I wanted to say in the beginning, but.
Right, and maybe you could write a really clear article about that, and it would make it clear to more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's just lay it out really simplistically would be really helpful. Because we don't, it's almost obstruction. We don't want the obstruction. Because we've been through all of this in the beginning a long time ago, and now, it's coming up now, and we just don't need the obstacles, so.
Okay. I think we are.
Everybody's quiet. Let's go quick.
We did pretty good. It's only 6 minutes past. All right. I think we have finished our discussion for today. I know we still have a lot of hanging threads there. We have elk threads and we have school threads and fire threads and everything, but we will continue the discussion next month, third Monday of the month. Please join us. Thank you all for coming and thank you for all the new faces. It's kind of fun to see all of them. And hello, Dick, how are you? It's also,
Doing that, we're doing
it's also on our school.
5 card in all the hotels. If somebody comes into a hotel, we have a 3x5 that says, gives information about the elk. We also send out the email blasts. And we send those out on a fairly regular basis. So we're already doing some outreach on elk.
Okay.
I just sent you a flyer that we did last year with Jason that we can repost again on Facebook.
Yeah.
yeah, we could talk about, let's just talk about it at
That's
a
good.
meeting
That
and
would
come
be
up with like brainstorm ideas for,
Mhm.
mitigating the confrontations.
Right.
The main thing is people in Cannon Beach do not wanna, they want the elk, they don't wanna kill them. I mean, I don't know what the solution, what they think the solution is. I mean, that's what I wanna know is what they think the solution is. Is culling killing?
Yes.
Yeah. Harvesting.
All right. Thank you for all for coming. I appreciate it. Good to see you and please come back next month, which is September.
Yes.